What's up, guys? Cameron here from Drums and Drams, and today we have one of the most highly anticipated bourbons of 2024. And yes, I know we're only a weekend at this point. I'm shooting this video on January 8th, but I have a feeling that once we get to the end of the year, closer to allocation season, and we take a look back over the course of 2024 to all of the special release bottles that we expected, some I'm sure we'll never see coming, I'm willing to bet that this bottle will be at the top of many of our lists of things that we were looking forward to, trying to get our hands on, and bottles that we were hopeful would meet our kind of group expectation as a whiskey community, given the hype surrounding this. I am, of course, talking about Old Forester 1924. And what makes this bottle so special is the age statement on the front. Yes, it comes in at 100 proof, great proof point, but a 10-year age statement on an Old Forester bottle should make you think one of two things. The first is birthday bourbon. Crazy allocated, expensive, hard to find, really, really hard to find. And the second is President's Choice, which is even harder to find, has kind of a wide range of ages, but birthday bourbon, President's Choice, these are crazy bottlings. Also, you might think of King of Kentucky, not technically an Old Forester product, but a Brown-Forman product, 14 to 18 years. Either way, it's all the same. To have a 10-year age statement on the front of an Old Forester bottle, it is a big deal, and it does set some sort of expectation in the minds of consumers. And so today we're going to find out if this meets, I guess, my expectation, and if it doesn't, where does this thing fall? So we're gonna get into this today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the stats. I have some bottles pulled out in front of me for some comparisons. I kept it within the Brown-Forman family because there are so many bottles you could compare to this one. McKenna, Russell's 10, Eagle Rare, all 10 years old, all about half the price, actually. This is coming in around $100. But again, we're talking Old Forester, a brand not known for age statements like this. So the price jump on this one in the market seems, at least for now, somewhat justified. We'll find out on the nose and on the palate. But yeah, we're going to do maybe some side-by-side comparisons as we get into this. I'm going to keep this video as unedited as I possibly can. I want to try to speed through it, but because we're going to just kind of get nitty-gritty on a few things, I don't want to lose any detail by being tempted to chop this up and edit it. So let's get into it now. Like I said, on this bottle, around $100, 10 years, 100 proof, all really, really great stats. And this is just a rumor. And I know how rumors go on this whiskey channel, but this is not a crazy rumor. I heard that this is a blend of the Early Times mash bill and the Old Forester mash bill. I believe they have different yeast strains, so it could have like a different, more unexpected flavor profile at this age. So I'm not sure exactly if that's the case. Let me know in the comments if you know anything about it. And also, if I forget anything throughout this entire review, please let me know in the comments. I want to make this clear from this point forward on the channel. If I ever miss anything, let's keep the conversation going in the comment section. I'm always active in there, and I pin posts that have good information that maybe I forgot in certain reviews. Anyways, let's check this out now. I've been looking forward to this for quite a while. 1924 on the nose. All right, so smells good. That's the first thing. Check. We're good on this. It smells good. It's a very dark profile. And when you smell it, I don't think immediately your mind would go to Old Forester. At least mine doesn't. When I smell this, the first note that jumps out is some sort of chocolate molasses dark fruit. Like, we're really in dark territory. And that's kind of a profile thing. But I think in terms also of just a more general aspect of this whiskey, it's very gentle. So yes, dark profile, and I tend to like darker profiled whiskeys. Darker, but more gentle. This is not like jumping out of the glass. It smells really good, but it feels like it takes a little bit of effort. It's one of those things, again, first impressions right now, one of those things that I need to sit down with in a quiet room. It's not going to stand up to boisterous stuff going on around you. You want to sit down and focus on this whiskey. Yeah, I mean, to me, this is somewhat meeting expectations of what I wanted a 10-year Old Forester product to be. Ages like this on Brown-Forman products typically start to get you into that molasses, like really, really thick profile that begins to border on President's Choice and King of Kentucky. And that's when I think this distillate becomes very special. This is right on the cusp. It's not quite there, and that makes sense, right? It's not President's Choice. It's not King of Kentucky. It's not Birthday Bourbon. It's right on that cusp. It basically tastes like the rejected barrels that would go into something like that in a batched product. And again, that kind of makes sense. There's also still kind of this Old Forester sensibility to it of Old Forester 86, which is this yeast note. I always get kind of this distinct yeastiness also on younger Jack Daniel's products as well. So a lot of great dark happening in here. Molasses, chocolate, kind of rich dark fruits. It's very sweet on the nose, but I also still get this brighter toned yeast thing going on and maybe a little bit of vanilla. Yeah, this is close. Like this is very close to giving you that that aged vanilla note that I really love in higher aged bourbons. King of Kentucky has it. I'm going to keep referencing King of Kentucky because that's my upper echelon reference point for this kind of whiskey, even though it might not be the exact same stuff if this is a blend of early times and Old Forester, but it's darn close. And so you're going to probably hear me reference that a few times in this video. All right, last thing I'm going to say is that there's kind of an oatmeal cookie note, which I got on Michter's 10. We might talk about that at some point in this video, the possible connections there, but oatmeal cookie and maybe a little bit of an old school butterscotch thing going on here. That would be very faint and very in the background, and I don't want to overhype it. To me, this is a very solid whiskey on the nose, and I think a lot of people are going to be happy with it, but I also think it's not living up to the hype. Maybe the expectation of a 10-year 100 proof is met, but maybe the hype of this being like the second coming is not quite there. So anyways, let's get this on the palate now. Enough talking. Cheers. Yeah, gentle on the palate too. I mean, yeah, I don't want to say this tastes flat. That would be an exaggeration. But this is definitely not, there's no like bombastic element to this. I know it's only 100 proof, but there's no fireworks. It very much does this on the palate. It kind of just coasts along. So in terms of drinking experience, I would say that it's not an obvious whiskey on the palate. It's something, again, I think you need to sit with this for a while in a room by yourself, contemplating. No, I'm just kidding. But I do think it requires some attention to really get into it. Now, I will go back to the palate and talk front of the palate, mid palate, but we are into the finish now. And the first thing that I'm getting is a bittersweet chocolate note. It is a little dry on the finish, actually, and a little bitter. I don't know yet if I don't like that. We'll find out as we keep sipping it, but it is worth noting here at the beginning. All right, second sip. It's good. It's good. It's really not spicy. This is super easy drinking stuff. It does remind me kind of Michter's 10. Like, not the 2023. I want to be clear about that. The 2023s that I've tasted, specifically the A barrels, I haven't tasted the others, so I don't know the discrepancies or non-discrepancies between them that people are talking about, but this reminds me of like older years of Michter's 10 bourbon, just not quite up to that level, which makes sense. Now, speaking of Michter's 10 bourbon, I'm going to call out a note on here, and I want to give credit where credit's due. It's an acetone note, and whenever I learn really specific notes like this from other whiskey tubers, I want to give them credit. So Jason from the Mash and Drum, I sent him a flight a year or two ago, and one of the pours was a 2021 Michter's 10 bourbon, and he called out that acetone note pretty quickly on the nose, and that is a hallmark of those Michter's 10 bourbons. And there is some suggestion, I don't know if it's proven or not, that some of those Michter's 10 bourbons were sourced Brown-Forman, or maybe even contract distilled Brown-Forman. And if that is the case, that would make sense, because this also has that kind of acetone note. This is why this is kind of reminding me of, of that Michter's 10 profile, but again, not quite up to that level. Another note like this that someone's taught me is Matt from ADHD Whiskey, the red wine finish that he talks about on Jack Daniel's. So I always want to give credit where credit's due. Either way, I think this is a really nice whiskey. I don't think this is God's gift to earth. I don't think it's worth falling out of your seat over and running out to the store and waiting in all these lines. We have yet to see what the availability is like on this bottle. Secondary right now is between $250 and $350. I do not think in any world that it's worth that. I mean, when I think of those prices, if you were going to spend it, this is purely hypothetical. I don't want to tell you to spend a bunch of money on secondary. If you're going to spend that money, buy a Michter's 10 bourbon. Don't buy this. Michter's 10 bourbon is better, and probably even the older years that were less talked about would be better than this. But if this were like $150 on secondary, $160, I could see people wanting to pick it up at that price if it's scarce in their area. That makes sense to me because it may be hard to find, and it is a unique bottle. And at that price point, that would sit somewhere in the secondary market between younger Old Forester and then getting into older products from other distilleries like a Michter's 10 before you get to birthday bourbon and stuff like that. So I think overall people are going to be very happy, very pleased by this. And I think also for folks that have never tried birthday bourbon, President's Choice, King of Kentucky, and they've never experienced what I call that older molasses profile on Old Forester whiskeys, I think this will be their first introduction to that profile. And that's going to be a really cool moment for a lot of people who are not going to have the chance to experience that profile otherwise. So don't freak out about this. Let's wait to see what the availability is. But I would encourage people to not overpay for this whiskey like I did to get it for this review. Frankly, I am a little bummed at the amount of money I had to pay for this. It's not bad whiskey. It's pretty darn good whiskey. And now we have to do a few very quick comparisons because I've yapped enough. So first off, let's do what is maybe, for me, the most sensible comparison in this Whiskey Row series. I thought 1920, but the proof difference is just too much. So I went with 1910. I thought because this is 93 proof, it's got a little extra oak maturation on it as well. Let's see if that extra oak can kind of get it closer to this 1924 profile or not. Yeah, the nose is still kind of those really candied fruit notes, candied banana, like Runts banana notes, big candied cherries, candied strawberry. And then the underpinning here is almost like a syrupy chocolate from that double barreling. Not bad by any means, but when you put it next to the 1924, it becomes very clear which one is the older whiskey. But interestingly, the 1924 at a higher proof actually feels lower proof than the 93 proof 1910. That's a lot of numbers and a lot of saying the word proof. Yeah, so I don't know. Direct comparison, 1910, is it a substitute? Not really. Unfortunately, not really. I don't think there is going to be a substitute for this kind of age. Let's taste the 1910 quickly. Yeah, big yeast. And then it feels like there's a candied profile and an oaky sweet profile that are very just separated on the palate, and they don't really come together very well. And that makes sense for a younger double-barreled product like this. All right, so moving on now in the comparisons, I have this Old Forester 117 series, which again, I know these aren't easy to get either, but I just thought it'd be an interesting one. This is the bottled in bond, and it's a 9-year bottled in bond. It's about as close as you're going to get to this 100 proof 1924. So let's check this out now on the nose. Interesting. So this is actually very similar in feel, but it lacks the molasses notes and has a much more complex fruit character. Like it's a sophisticated, complex fruit note, and it smells, it kind of is like getting towards the birthday bourbon profile, whereas I feel like this is getting more towards President's Choice King of Kentucky with those kind of molasses notes. So this is like advanced, fruity Old Forester. Smells delicious. Oh yeah, and the palate is great. And a little more spice than the 1924 to drive it forward. Yeah, but not necessarily a substitute, but for those of you who have ever tried this, just imagine a little bit of a darker, more molasses forward profile, but otherwise very similar. And now finally, we're going to go over to this Jack Daniel's 10-year, which I thought would also be a good comparison. You can see we've had a little cork mishap on this one, so watch out for those corks if you guys have these bottles. Let's check out this Jack 10 on the nose. Oh, and this is very different. Wow, I've never had Jack 10 smell like George Dickel, but in this comparison, that Lincoln County process on here has given it kind of like this pencil shaving, graphite kind of note, almost like an industrial kind of charcoal rubber note. And then on the oak profile part of this Jack 10, it is much more sour and heavy oak, heavy leather. They're kind of related, but actually less than I thought. You know, if I had my choice in this comparison, I actually think the 1924, if it's not at the top, then this Bottled and Bond would be. And because this is, you know, not a continuous release, this 1924 actually, I think, might beat this Jack 10. And it certainly beats the 1910. So yeah, I think it's a great whiskey. Interesting comparisons. It's going to be a lot of people's introduction to molasses-forward Old Forester, and I hope it's not super, super allocated. So let me know in the comments what you think of this. This is probably a longer video with all these comparisons. I apologize, but it just kind of is what it is. I wanted to do kind of a deep dive on this and try to figure some things out. I'm sure at some point I will put this in a blind flight with similar things, or maybe next to McKenna, Russell's 10, Eagle Rare. I don't know. Let me know what you would like to see in the comments below. And also, if you want to help support the channel, like, comment, subscribe, all that, but check out the Drums and Drams Patreon. We're doing some great stuff over there, building a community, $5 or $10 a month, nothing crazy, and we do monthly giveaways, and it's just a great place to be, hang out, ask questions, and talk to like-minded whiskey folk. That's going to do it, guys. Cheers, and I will see you next time here on Drums and Drams.